economist Dr. Ifiedora Amobi joins us now for more. Thank you, Dr. Amobi, for joining us on Newsnight. Now, the cost of living keeps rising by the day. That has been attributed to two factors, trying to float the naira and, of course, the removal of fuel subsidy. And this is coming at just about the time that Nigerians were trying to recover from the new naira design policy. So everything is piling up. Speak to us about the impact of this. Let's start from the very starting. Family disintegration. That's one thing that really bothers one. So talk to us about how this impacts on family disintegration.
Well, thank you very much. The impact is actually very, very devastating and very, very negative. For the families, it is very, very severe. We just see how almost every family is going through a series of adjustments and readjustments in their lifestyles, cutting down on their budgets, working now more than even driving. One of I'd say the bright spots at this time is that for most schools have actually closed for the summer. And so a lot of that movement is going to decrease on the parent side, the school runs, etc. However, it is going to be quite devastating in September when school starts. And so there's going to be a lot of savings between now and then, a lot of more readjustments for the families on their basic consumption pattern. It's hitting everybody badly. The price of food, price of transport, and other essential commodities. And so it is, it's not going to be very, very easy, and it's not easy on Nigerians. As a matter of fact, I think it was the New Telegraph this morning on the front page that even said that that we should actually look out for another fuel price increase very, very soon. I don't know what would result in that. What has happened over time is that because of the removal of fuel subsidy, that was that first adjustment from 200 naira thereabout to 600 naira. And then the attempt to harmonize the exchange rates, both the black market and the official rate, resulted in an exchange differential, which was the additional almost 200 naira that went from 500 to 650 in some places. Now, this third wave that is predicted by New Telegraph could also be a result of an increase in transport costs. It could be a result of even the war in Ukraine or some other external factor that we have no control over, even the international price of crude oil. So
I could come in,
we really
Dr.
have
Amobi,
to tighten our belts very, very seriously.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a double whammy, really, for Nigerians. Some economists like yourself are saying to President Tinubu, look, slow down on some of these your economic policies because they're having a dizzying effect on Nigerians. Would you agree with that? And if these policies are not in place now, when?
Yes, I actually totally agree with that. These are policies that were actually meant to have happened before now. Policies that would have had some, quite a lot of thinking and research and consultations prior to now. Nigerians deserve, certain benefits from being citizens of an oil-producing country. You cannot remove subsidies overnight and then look for money to now cushion the effects of those subsidies. So why did you remove them in the first place? you know, I will tell Mr. President, yes, slow down. What could have happened, in my own opinion, was that this, could have been a phased subsidy removal program that would have taken between 12 and 18 months. If it was such that it was planned such that every month, let's say 5 naira, 7 naira was added to the fuel pump price, the adjustment would have been, a lot easier for the average Nigerian. Food prices wouldn't have actually jumped or doubled, and in some cases and some places tripled, as the case may be. There's the push for an increase in minimum wage to also cater for this increase. As well as that sounds, people also have to be careful, because that also has inflationary consequences. Once the minimum wage is increased, prices are going to go up in the market. And so, it's a double-edged sword, like you said, Ngozi.
Dr. Amobi,
we should be very, very careful, and that, yes.
Well, you were trying to land on your point.
We're waiting for you to land. Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yes, the point I was actually going to make was that we should take this, on a step-by-step basis and not just throw everything at Nigerians at the same time.
Okay, now that it's happened this way, there's very little we can do to change the mind of the government. We can just keep telling them what we feel. Speak to us about the lifestyle adjustments that we can embrace to cope through this phase.
Sorry, I didn't hear you properly.
Okay, now that this has happened the way it is, there's very little we can do to change the policy except to keep talking to the people in authority. Well, make suggestions to us on the lifestyle adjustments that we can make, that we can embrace to go through this phase.
Well, yes. One of the things we should actually do, as much as I support the amount that was approved for the palliatives, but I don't think it should be distributed the way the president's office, narrated it. A lot of those funds should go into directly cushioning this effect. They should go to the poor, those who are less privileged, not for furniture, not for bulletproof cars, not for vehicles, not for the judiciary, at least not at this time. These monies should go into mass transit. They should go into providing infrastructure. They should go into doing those things that, would impact the poor and the vulnerable directly as much as possible.
Okay, so before we let you go, still speaking on lifestyle changes that Nigerians need to, not necessarily on the part of government. How do we help ourselves in a way that we survive, through these headwinds and not be victims at the end of the day when the good times come again? What would you say, as a Nigerian, as a father, husband, what would you say we need to do to help ourselves?
Well, to help ourselves, I think the first thing we need to do, and what a lot of us have already started doing, is revisiting our budget, our own household budget, cutting down on those excesses, cutting down on those areas that we can do without in the short to medium term, focusing more on priority areas that, that are essential. Some of the adjustments, like I said, that have been made also, like now, meetings are now held electronically. So you don't have to drive there physically, you don't have to be there, in person. There's Zoom, there are all these other, platforms that can ease that. And so it's just about making those adjustments, bulk shopping. Because you know that that tomorrow prices are going to also increase. If you have that extra funds, buy more than you need for today so that at least you have food for tomorrow and next until your next revenue stream.
Dr. Amobi, I doubt very much, if you can hear me, I doubt very much if Nigerians can actually, many Nigerians can afford this bulk shopping that you talk about. I mean, I had to, go down to a quarter of a basket of tomatoes over the weekend. I mean, before I could buy a whole basket. But now it's about 8,000 or so. We'll settle for a quarter. But let's even talk about what the states need to do. I know that states like Kwara, as last week we heard that they've cut down on the number of days that civil servants, can show up at work. I mean, what's your take on that? Some companies too, private, organizations are also reducing, towing that same line.
Well, I mean, it's almost like, well, it's a palliative. It doesn't actually solve the problem itself, because what happens now is that when you cut down on days, working days and working hours, you're also sacrificing productivity and output. And an economy can only grow if its output is increased and is increasing over time. If we stifle production and cut down on work hours and sacrifice productivity, we will not grow as a country. What will happen now is that by the end of the year, or in the next 12 months, instead of being the largest economy in Africa, we'll now end up being, the top 5 or the top 10 economy in Africa. And so it's quite a balance. Government has to really weigh a lot of these things, and really look into it. We have to look at our foreign reserves. How do we manage them properly to ensure that our naira doesn't depreciate even further? Because if we overlook that aspect and the naira keeps dropping, prices will just keep going up, because various essential commodities like crude oil are dollar dependent. And so even if the price of crude in the international market, for instance, doesn't go up at all, and naira depreciates, we're going to go from 600 to 700, 700 to 800, and very soon up to 1,000. And so government has to really manage the economy in such a way that there is stability, not only on the naira side, but also on the foreign exchange side.
Right. Dr. Ifiedora Amobi, thank you so much for joining us. Well, the president has said there will be need to review the 8,000 naira palliatives for 12 million households. Wonder what that review will bring to Nigerians. Thank you very much for your time on Newsnight.